Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be building a gaming PC. But before we start, make sure to check out my last video where you can see me give myself this sick haircut. Alright, now it's time to get nerdy all up in this. The parts I got for this build are the EVGA 600 watt power supply, the ASUS TUF B450 Plus gaming motherboard, AMD's Radeon 5700 8GB graphics card, AMD's Ryzen 3600 5th gen CPU. For storage we got Crucial's 1TB NVMe, an Arctic fan, Viper DDR4 3600MHz RAM, Cougar's MX330 ATX mid-tower case. I'll also add the full parts list down in the description below so you guys can check it out there. First thing to take out the motherboard. The motherboard's going to hold everything in place, so that's why we should start there and then add all the important components on there first, like the CPU, the RAM, and the NVMe. The box should come with some cables for your external SSDs. If you're still using hard drives in 2020, do me a favor and 360 no-scope that into the trash. Make sure to also take out your PCIe slot cover. Next up, I'm going to place this bad boy right on top of its box to avoid any damage to the bottom of the motherboard. Some people do this for anti-static reasons. I'm not sure exactly why. I'll leave that up to you guys to Google. Now we're going to whip out the brain of the computer, the CPU. In my case, I got the Ryzen 3600, base speed of 3.6 GHz, overclocked up to 4.2. It has 6 cores and 12 threads, blah blah blah. You guys get the point. It's pretty fast. When installing the CPU, you want to look for this metal lever and pull it to the side and up. Try not to break any of these golden pins at the bottom of your CPU. If you break it, your CPU is going to be completely useless. Hold your CPU from the sides and look for this little golden triangle at the bottom. You want to align this golden triangle with a similar triangle at the bottom of your CPU socket. I gently placed it in and gave it a little bit of a wiggle just to make sure it was nicely aligned. Now to secure the CPU in place, go back to the metal lever and pull it back down and click it in place. Feel free to apply a little bit of force here, it might be a little tough. The next step is to install the CPU fan. This stock fan actually came with the CPU. It has this thermal paste at the bottom, so try not to touch it. That part's going to sit on top of the CPU. To install it first, we got to take out these little metal brackets on the side. They're holding onto this metal back plate, which we're going to screw the fan on top of. One of the screws is being a little bit annoying, so it took some effort to get it out, but once we did, I can align the screws with the back plate. It's a good idea to screw in one corner and then go in a cross pattern. Don't screw it too much, do a little bit and then move to the next corner and then come back and fasten it in later. For this motherboard, the preferred slots for 2 sticks of RAM is the second one and the fourth one. When inserting your RAM sticks, they're only going to go in one way. So you want to align the little cut at the bottom with the same cut in the slot. And you want to apply pressure evenly and you get a nice click sound, something like this. Make sure the RAM sticks are installed nicely or else your computer might not turn on. Next up we got our NVMe SSD. This should go right into the M.2 slot, right about there. You're going to need this little packet which came with your motherboard box, and it contains the standoff and the screw required to fasten in your SSD. I hold the SSD up against the slot and I figure out which one of the 4 hex nuts I need to screw it into. I would avoid using a screwdriver here as you don't want to damage the motherboard if you apply too much pressure. When installing the SSD, hold it at a 30-degree angle, make sure the contacts are facing the M.2 slot, and just kind of wiggle it in. For me, it took a little bit more force than I expected it to. I just didn't want to break it, so I was being as gentle as possible, just wiggling it slowly until it was fully in. When we're done, the SSD is going to look like it's at an angle, but that's alright, because now we're going to take the screw that came with the packet and we're going to align it with the little dip that was in the SSD, and we're just going to push it down and we're going to screw it into the standoff that we installed earlier. Now we're done with the motherboard for now, so I'm going to go back to the case and start taking it apart. I'm removing this glass or acrylic tinted thing, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm just taking off the 4 screws from each corner. I'm just going to pop it off. Now I'm going to remove the back panel. I just take off the top and bottom screw, and I just start pulling it to the right, but also pulling it back towards me, and then it should just kind of pop off. Inside you should find a packet which has the screws and anything you might need to fasten your motherboard onto the case. The motherboard I have is a full-size ATX. It has 9 little holes, which we can screw into and it's going to go right onto the case. But unfortunately the case itself only had 6 standoffs, so that means we need to put in the 3 other standoffs, but luckily that comes in the packet too. The standoffs are too hard to screw in by hand, so after digging in the toolbox for a couple minutes, I was able to find the right attachments. One of the attachments had a hexagon on one side and a square on the other side, and the second attachment had a square on one side and a small hexagon on the other side, which fit perfectly with the standoffs. Before we place in our motherboard, we want to put in our PCIe slot cover. And to do that, you just put it in from the inside, make sure it's correctly aligned, and just press it really hard from each corner, and you should hear a nice click sound. Now you can place in our motherboard and align it with the PCIe slot cover. Oh look, it's me! Now with the motherboard in place, we should be able to screw it in. The screw should have came in the packet that I showed you before that came with the case. Once again, I found that if you start at the corners and then you screw them in halfway and then you go back and screw them in fully later, it works much better. This is what it looks like so far, and now it's time to give the PC some juice. I crack open the box and there should be a bunch of cables. The first cable here is the power cable. This one's going to go from your wall outlet into the actual power supply. And then here's the packet of screws which we're going to use to put it on the case. The power supply I have is non-modular, so all the cables are stuck onto the actual power supply and I can't remove any of the extra ones. So you see here's the bundle of cables. Now I'm going to take the power supply and put it in from the side, and you can place it upside down if that gives you better ventilation. For me, there's a piece of metal above the power supply and there's a mesh at the bottom, so it makes sense for me to place it with the fan facing downwards. Once aligned with the holes, you should be able to screw it right into place. Now I take the 20x4 connector and thread it through the hole on the side, and then I just align it together and just click it into the slot. Can't forget to give our CPU some of that juice. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part. We got the GPU. The one I have here is MSI's Radeon 5700 8GB MECH graphics card. These things have some insane packaging with them. You get a little envelope and a thank you note. Inside there you'll also find some documents as well as some stickers. Some really cool robot mech stickers. At the bottom here we have the GPU. It comes in its anti-static cover. This graphics card was suggested to me by someone on Reddit. For my purposes, I mainly just need it for gaming, recording, streaming, anything to do with making videos. I really like the look of this graphics card. It has this mechanical, robust type of feel. It looks very solid. Here's me spinning the wheel. Look how smooth that is. Now I can go ahead and install it. I'm just going to take the PCIe Express connector. I'm just going to line it up with the slot on the motherboard. I'm just going to push until I hear a really nice click sound. Something like this. Once it feels snug, I'm going to secure it in place with a screw. Here's the part that I found the hardest. It was trying to connect these little wires. These are used for the interface on top of the case. Basically like the start button, restart button, all that other stuff. Eventually I got it, but it took a lot of time. Once I got the wires connected, I booted the PC up, connected it to my monitor, and nothing happened. It was completely blank, and I got kind of scared here. After doing a bit of research, I figured out that the BIOS on the motherboard was a bit outdated and needed to be updated in order to support my 3rd gen Ryzen. So in order to do that, I borrowed my friend's 2nd gen Ryzen, booted it up, it started up no problem, put in my USB stick, and flashed the BIOS to the latest version that I could find on their website. With the updated BIOS, the CPU was recognized right away. I was able to install Windows and set up the PC. And then, the first thing we gotta do is a performance test. On CSGO, the performance was very good. It was like 200 to 300 frames. I didn't make any modifications to the settings. These are the default high settings that it starts off with. Even while recording, it was keeping the performance up, which is perfect for me since I'm going to be recording and streaming, so very nice. Next up was the one and only Minecraft. Using all the fancy textures and an 8 render distance, I was getting really good frames again, over 200, which for me is perfect because when I was playing this, I did not feel any performance drop at all. Even when I started recording, it felt like it was super smooth. So when I'm recording gameplay or something, it's going to be perfect for me. I'm not going to feel anything, and I'm going to be able to get you guys really good high definition content. Speaking of quality, let's take a look at this Rocket League footage. This is at high quality settings, and you can see the little blades of grass at the ground moving as well. For me, this was amazing. When I was looking at it, I've never seen something such high quality before. On my old computer, I'm used to playing on these low settings, so seeing this increase of quality was very refreshing. I enjoyed it a lot, and I can't wait to get you guys some really good content. So this wraps up my PC building video. If you guys want to see more content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe down below. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!